Thick clouds blotted out the sky, making it dark enough to pitch a coin. In the middle of a dense, primeval forest, a man stood frozen, the batteries in his flashlight dying. He took them out, tapped them together, and put them back in. A weak beam of light pierced the darkness. The man managed to find a narrow, barely visible path from which he had carelessly strayed and gotten lost. Clearly, his current foray was pointless. He wouldn't find anything, and would probably break his legs. But there was nothing else to do. By his estimates, the killer would come out to hunt tonight, and would definitely maul someone. The man was woefully unprepared for the hike. He'd forgotten to check the flashlight batteries. His ammunition was spent. When the man fell into a crevice, his rifle sank to the bottom. He needed to turn back, but finding the way back to the town proved difficult. He had been wandering through the woods for about an hour and a half without success. He was confused by the map he'd drawn himself. At this point, he was no longer afraid of the killer. He was afraid of getting lost in the forest and dying of hunger here. The flashlight beam picked out a clearing among the trees. The man perked up and headed toward it. Ahead was a hillock, a path at its base, and at the top, an old, well-preserved cabin. "No, does someone really live here?" the man wondered. An image of the killer flashed through his mind, but, being a superstitious man, he pushed it away to avoid tempting fate. Moving closer, he peeked in the window, shining his light inside. It was dusty, but judging by the fresh mud on the floor, someone had been here recently. Turning off the flashlight, he saw the room was dimly lit by a candle flame from somewhere below his line of sight. He needed to go inside and investigate. Circling the cabin and approaching the door, he tried to open it. It gave way easily. The smell of a kennel hit his nose. Just off the threshold on the floor lay 12 knives arranged in a row. A candle stood before them. The last knife was blood-stained. The man wanted to step closer to examine the knives, but then he felt movement behind him. Too late. The predator leaped. Sharp claws dug into his back. The man fell to the ground, instinctively throwing his hands up. Teeth sank into the upper part of his back, searching for his neck. Screaming, the man kicked out, managed to throw the huge wolf off, scrambled to his feet, got outside, and started to run. Blood flowed down his back, but he felt no pain. He descended the hillock. He needed to climb a tree and save himself, not his fate. The wolf caught up with him again, this time sinking its teeth into his leg. The adrenaline rush made him completely insensitive to pain. It gave him strength. With his free leg, he kicked the wolf in the abdomen. It yelped and loosened its jaw. The man managed to break free and, limping, reached a tree. At that moment, the wolf jumped again. Its jaws closed on the fugitive's neck. He grunted hoarsely, fell onto his back, reflexively pushing the wolf away with his hands and feet, writhing on the ground like a snake. But with every push, he grew weaker. The outcome of the fight was decided. The beast had killed the man. Only a week later, another hunter searching for the man-eating wolf found the body of Professor of Folklore, Stanislav Nikolaevich Yakovlev. My communication with Stanislav Nikolaevich didn't stop even after I started my army service. Every month or two, he would write to me, telling me about his life, about Sasha. From his letters, I learned they had decided to move to Argentina. The professor's position had been cut after all. Sasha had found a good job abroad. He mentioned his niece's wedding, which made me feel terribly melancholy. It also turned out my mom had gotten together with someone, and I was going home to meet a man I didn't want to know. However, I was comforted by the professor's promise to definitely come visit me once I finished my service. Looking back, I can say I miss the times when we wandered through forests, drove around small towns, and gathered scraps of information about the unknown. You can think of this activity however you like. Call it crazy, laugh at childish hobbies, grumble about a waste of time, but to deny it was fascinating and interesting would be a sin against the truth. Maybe when we met again, the professor would suggest one last adventure. I won't say the service was hard. I did encounter some hazing, but as often happens, the devil wasn't as scary as he was painted, and I even made new friends. By the end, I had settled in quite comfortably, and when the order for my discharge came, I even sighed a little about another chapter of my life turning over. I missed home and my mom. Even thoughts of her new beau stopped irritating me. I was somewhat worried that the professor hadn't written for the last 3 months. I thought about who would meet me, about the future, where it would take me. I didn't want to try college again. Mom would be upset that her son would be without a higher education, but there was nothing to be done. I had neither the desire nor the aptitude for academics. Finish a technical college, get a trade, get married, have kids. Maybe the grandkids would make grandma happy with their diplomas. Buy an apartment. I never liked living in a private house where you constantly have to fix things. Then save up for a car. Gain some wisdom and experience. Start my own business. I imagine my wife, of course, as beautiful, dark-haired, well, petite, graceful, so our tastes and values would match. In short, I dreamed of a kind of family idol. I dreamed so much that I started to believe my fantasies, and was convinced I could make them come true. I returned home in early October 2002. Surprisingly, many people came to meet me. Mom, who had shown delicacy and asked her beau to live separately for a while. Pregnant Gilia, who had already managed to get married. Childhood friends and girlfriends. Even that girl from the fortune-telling story, Varia, showed up, having found out about my return from somewhere. The last time I saw her, she was thin, pale, and plain, but now she had blossomed. But she still looked like an 8th grader, though she must have been at least 17. She said hello, then hugged me and kissed the corner of my mouth, not very shyly, reminding me of that New Year's Eve spent with her. I felt truly pleased when I realized how many people had been waiting for me. It even occurred to me that I wasn't a complete lost cause if people still remembered me. Only the professor's absence upset me, but I quickly forgot about him at the celebratory table. Varia was giving me unambiguous looks and making it clear she had designs on me. When people started to leave, she asked me to walk her home. Mom and Galia exchanged knowing smiles and glanced at me. I was about to agree. Varia had looked very tempting during the feast, but then the phone rang. It was Sasha Yakovleva asking for me. The professor had disappeared about a month ago. The police had promised Sasha they would look for him, but there had been no news from them. And when she called herself, they said the case was being worked on. She had no one to complain to. She had flown to the U.S. for a week, but found out nothing. The trail went cold in our city. He was planning to see acquaintances, including you, Sasha said. She had contacted an old school friend who had once been in love with her, a certain Gene Zelvikov. I never understood if he was a private investigator or just looked for missing people, but one way or another, he promised to look into her uncle for a generous reward. The last time she spoke to him was a week ago. He said he was on the trail, but didn't explain properly. After that, nothing. I know. I have no right to ask you for anything, but could you try to find out something? At least something. Sasha's voice trembled. She was almost crying. Uncle was the last close person I had. If you were even a little attached to him, could you? Of course I'll help. You should have called me right away, I replied irritably. I knew Sasha didn't particularly like me. But if to this day she thought I spent time with her and the professor only to get into college, she was not only shameless, but also stupid. Where does this Gene Zelvikov live? How can I contact him? She explained. I didn't say goodbye, just hung up. I'm going to find this Gene, beat the crap out of him. The army taught me well how to swing my fists. I saw surprise on the faces of the women who had waited for the end of the conversation and remembered it was almost midnight. I was drunk, and the beauty Varia was waiting for me to walk her home. Although alcohol had deprived me of a significant portion of common sense, it hadn't completely killed it. I walked Varia home, but the conversation didn't flow. There was no romance. I answered her questions dryly, then sharply. I seemed to have really offended her. By the end, she too became cold. We said goodbye at the bus stop where I hailed her a cab. We didn't exchange numbers. At that moment, I didn't care. I returned home, snapped at my mom when she started to question me, and fell into bed, wondering what could have happened to the professor. I tossed and turned all night, jumped up early in the morning, and was already at the entrance to Zelvikov's apartment by 8 a.m. No one answered. A neighbor came out at the noise. What do you want? She asked. I'm looking for Gennady Zelvikov, I said. They said he lives here. That's right, but he went away on business about 6 days ago. Didn't say when he'd be back. He was supposed to be back yesterday. How do I know? He always asks me to water his plants in his apartment. This time he asked too. Promised to be back in 5 days. Got delayed, I guess. Or got mixed up in the same business as the professor, I thought. Do you know where he went? No, he didn't say. Ask his mother. She always knows. Here's her number. And she wrote the number on a piece of paper. When I called, a nice old lady answered. She was worried about her son. She was suspicious, but I managed to get her talking and found out that Gene had gone to some godforsaken town out west. There he hoped to find the person he was working for. I thanked her for her help, promised to go there myself and, if I found out anything about her son, to let her know. With that, we said goodbye. That same day, I bought a road atlas and figured out the best and fastest way to get there. The town was truly godforsaken. No buses went there. You could only get there by car. I found another solution, getting an old sports bike out of the attic. I didn't know if the bus would take it in the luggage compartment or not. If not, I'd buy one in the nearest big city and ride from there. I didn't explain much to my mom, promised to return as soon as I could, to call her regularly, then bought bus tickets. Surprisingly, there were no problems with the bike. I set off safely, studying the atlas and the roads I had to take along the way. I noticed an interesting possibility to cut off almost 100 kilometers by turning toward a river and passing by a homestead with a stupid name, Lunar. I got the chance to use this discovery on the second day of my journey when, after switching from the bus to the bike, I covered almost 100 miles in a day. Spitting on safety and continuing to ride at dusk, sleeping right by the roadside, the road I planned to take as a shortcut was dirt but looked good, allowing me to save a day's travel. So I didn't think long, turned off. About an hour later, I came across a car abandoned on the shoulder. I stopped. Not a soul around. The tires were flat. I decided to look around. I circled it, checked a small grove by the roadside. No one seemed to be in the fields. Then I noticed some houses on the horizon, that very homestead. I decided to ride there to find out if the driver needed help. It took me about 20 minutes to get there, but the village turned out to be uninhabited. The houses were empty, crumbling, some of them burned down. "Anyone alive?" I called. "Seems like I'll have to report the car to the police as soon as I get a chance." I was about to leave when I noticed someone's face flash in the window of one house. I approached, knocked on the door, pushed it. It opened. I entered cautiously. "Who's there?" "I saw you." "Come on out," I said loudly. A grimy man peered out from a room. If not for the shock of gray hair, I'd say he was young. He was holding a pitchfork, breathing heavily. "I'll stab you," he warned. "I know you. I won't let you take me. Calm down." I raised my hands, backing toward the exit. "Who are you?" He didn't answer, advancing on me with the pitchfork. I noticed him shifting his foot, preparing to lunge. The knife I'd brought with me was with the bike, though I could handle the guy without a weapon. He looked emaciated, exhausted. "Put the pitchfork down, let's talk. I'm not going to do anything bad to you." I stopped to ask about the car on the shoulder. He stopped, lowered his head, stared at the floor. I thought about rushing him, trying to subdue him. I decided to wait. Maybe it would resolve without violence. "How could I forget?" the man said in a changed, calm voice. "I left the car on the shoulder." He looked at me. "You're not one of them." "Right. That's right," I confirmed, not understanding what he was talking about. "My name's Slava." The man lowered the pitchfork and extended his hand. "Gene," he introduced himself. Zelvikov didn't tell me anything about what had happened to him, but he willingly told me everything about Stanislav Nikolaevich. "I found him through a hunter friend of his. He told me Yakovlev was interested in the story of a man-eating wolf that hadn't been caught for several years. The beast is not only cunning but also fearless. It's not afraid to attack even grown men, something a single wolf wouldn't dare. Out of interest, this hunter went there, tried to track it, all in vain. Found no trace. So I told Yakovlev the locals made up the wolf to generate some interest in their dying town. But Yakovlev didn't believe me. I recognized the professor." I smiled. "He decided he had to go there. Planned to spend about a month there, talk to the locals, study the forest, give himself an unpaid vacation of sorts, and then return to meet some relative from the army. Said and done, and he disappeared. So I rushed there. Did Sasha hire you too? Well, keep in mind, these are dangerous places. Better drop it all and go back. The old man is definitely dead. That's why the cops aren't looking for him. Finding a body in these woods is impossible. I'll still try," I replied, tightening the last spoke on the wheel. "Ready? Listen, give me a ride to the highway, I beg you," said Zelvikov, looking toward the village. I was about to refuse, but looking at his gray hair, his smudged face and hands, I felt sorry for him and agreed. Reaching the intersection, we stopped. He got out of the car, looked at me intently, in a special way, and said, "Thank you. You can't imagine how much I owe you. Slava, be sure to visit me when you're in the city. I'll buy you a drink." And he looked furtively at the road I was about to take. "Don't turn off anywhere. Don't accept any invitations. Go straight to that town. If Yakovlev isn't there, try to return a different way." With that, we said goodbye. Ignoring his warning, I made it through the dirt road without incident in a day and reached the town where I hoped to find the professor late in the evening. You couldn't see a thing around. There were no streetlights, only lights burning in the houses. Tired from the road, I decided to ask for a place to stay at the house on the edge. I knocked. A dog yapped, shuffling steps were heard. The gate opened, and an old woman, a real sweetheart, looked up at me. She agreed to help immediately, saying there was room. I hid the bike in a shed and entered the house. The interior hadn't changed since the 70s. Hooks nailed to the wall served as a wardrobe. A large, sturdy wardrobe, firmly put together with big staples and lots of compartments. A sideboard with crystal dishes behind glass doors. Of course, colorful, beautiful rugs and bare light bulbs completing the necessary interior. The granny led me to the kitchen, got an immersion heater, and was about to make tea, but I firmly refused. "At least have some pies," she offered. I didn't refuse. Along with a light dinner, I decided to question the old woman. "I came here looking for a man, Professor Yakovlev, Stanislav Nikolaevich. You wouldn't happen to know if he's been here?" "How would I know?" she mumbled toothlessly. "I keep forgetting my own son's name. Have to ask." "Midiok, come here," she shouted, looking into the hallway. Soon a short, thin man of about 40 appeared in the doorway, with disheveled long hair, a simple face, kind gray eyes. "What is it, Ma?" The old woman looked at me as if to say, "Go on, explain." I greeted him and explained the situation. "What did he look like?" asked Midiok. "Thin, gray-haired, tall, and always wore a brown coat. Aristocratic features, you know?" I described the professor. Midiok grunted. "Aristocratic? No, don't know him. You should see Evgeny Solomonovich, our local sheriff. He might know something." "Where does he live?" "In town." "Where else?" "If you want, I'll take you tomorrow." "I'd be very grateful." "Oh, don't be so polite. You're one of us now." Midiok smiled. "We're all family here. No need for formalities." Early in the morning, Midiok woke me. "Get up quick. I don't have time to mess with you. I gotta start cleaning the pig pen." Without further ado, I got dressed. I wanted to gather my things, but Midiok objected. "What for? Stay here, since you came. Nothing will happen to your stuff." He was right. Where else would I stay? There were definitely no hotels, and the other residents were no better or worse than the old woman and her son. So, leaving my things, I walked through the town with Midiok, expecting the worst. In reality, the only serious problems were with the road, which was full of potholes. A truck definitely couldn't get through. But otherwise, the town had both running water and electricity. Even a small clinic. A school. "Kids from 6 miles away come here to study," said Midiok as we passed a 2-story square building made of white brick. On the way, we ran into acquaintances of Midiok's, who behaved quite rudely with him. "Hey, Chukon!" they called out to him. "Who's the kid with you? Where'd you dig him up?" I felt uncomfortable that they were talking about me in my presence as if I weren't there. "A visiting hunter." "Nah, what kind of hunter?" "Doesn't look like one." "Well, see ya, Chukon." "See ya." Midiok turned to me. "We got a wolf here they call the man-eater. So hunters come. Try to catch it." "Yeah, no luck so far." I nodded, didn't answer. The town, its residents, I definitely didn't like them. Literally 3 minutes later, we reached the sheriff's house. "Find your way back, kid?" asked Midiok. I'll find it. I brushed him off. He turned and walked back, and I opened the little iron gate and knocked on the door. A short, pot-bellied, round-faced man in civilian clothes, somewhat resembling a piglet, opened it. "Yevgeny Solomonovich." The sheriff introduced himself. "And you are?" he asked, blinking. I explained the situation. Name was Stanislav Nikolaevich Yakovlev. Come in. The sheriff led me inside, fetched a low stool from somewhere, and offered me a seat. Know him. The wolf got him. What? I didn't believe his words. Just like that, the sheriff spread his hands, tore his throat out. Was he a relative of yours? My condolences. Buried him in the local cemetery. Couldn't find any next of kin. His things are stored somewhere, if they haven't been thrown out. I'll give them to you. I listened to him with half an ear, refusing to believe the professor was dead, remembering all we'd been through. Thought about how I'd tell Sasha. You hear me? Want me to show you your relative's grave? I nodded. All right, let's go. I've got plenty to do today. Though the sheriff was more educated than the other residents I'd met, he clearly lacked delicacy. The local cemetery was like a vegetable garden. Some dug up, crooked paths, iron crosses leaning askew, and occasionally sloppy headstones. When we reached the professor's grave, I was horrified. A mound of earth, a wooden cross without any identifying marks, and nothing more. I wanted to cry, but I held back. I'm going. If you find out what you need, come by. I'll try to find the things. Someone's already put you up. The old lady living on the edge of town. Her son is Midiak Yegorovich. I'll get your relative's things to you. What was he to you? My father. I lied, wanting to get rid of the sheriff quickly. Once again, my condolences, he said, and left me alone. I stood for a long time, finally couldn't hold back, and shed a tear. To think, just recently I was reading the professor's letter, thinking about meeting him after the army. For the 3 years we knew each other, he had truly been a father to me, and now he was gone, just like my biological parent. Only unlike my father, I would definitely never see the professor again. There was no more reason to stay in the town. I needed to get home as soon as possible and tell Sasha what had happened. I still didn't know how to do it. On the way to the old woman's house, thinking about this, I suddenly noticed a young girl walking behind me, looking at me fearfully from time to time. Did you want something? I asked in a dejected voice. Yes. She decided to come closer. Are you a hunter? No. Well, good. She sighed with relief and was about to leave. Wait, why did you ask? No reason. The girl froze and looked at me uncertainly. Sorry, I have to go. She walked quickly to the nearest alley and disappeared around the corner of a house. A strange question and strange behavior. However, I didn't attach much importance to this encounter. I reached the old woman's house without incident. Midiak and those 2 men we met on the way to the sheriff were sitting on a bench by the gate. All 3 were drunk. Oh, Slava, come here, called Midiak. Meet Shurup and Sonya. Sit down, have a drink, talk about life. I'm not in the mood. What's with you? Jumped up Shurup, who looked like a convict. Too good to talk to us locals? City slicker. I frowned, wanted to hit the jerk, but Midiak calmed him down. Shurup, leave the kid alone. Don't tell me what to do, Chukon. I'll figure out how to behave myself. Or Uncle Genial will deal with you later. Leave him. Shurup gave me a contemptuous look and sat down. Yeah. Midiak called out to me a second before I closed the gate behind me. The sheriff came by, asked to give you some things. Ma put them somewhere. Thanks, I'll talk to her, I replied. The old woman did indeed give me Stanislav Nikolaevich's things. His old brown coat, a suitcase with a change of clothes, a wallet with a little money left in it, an honest sheriff, that one, and a notebook. I looked at my wristwatch. It was almost noon. If I wanted to return today, I needed to set out. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened the notebook, and started skimming the short notes. I stopped on the last ones. August 19th. Behavior uncharacteristic of a wolf. They very rarely attack adults. Need to go there. August 29th. Over 4 hunters have disappeared here. Such beasts simply don't exist. August 30th. The locals know something, are hiding it. I think they're intimidated. Asterisk August 31st. Suspect a skinwalker, a shapeshifter. Hiding somewhere in the forest, kills those who cross him. The list of those who disappeared will give a clue. Especially the hunters. Asterisk. September 1st. The killing should be today. Going into the forest tonight. On the last sheet was a skillfully drawn map of forest paths, an area highlighted. Obviously, that's where the professor was searching. There was a note about how Stanislav Nikolaevich planned to deal with the skinwalker. I closed the notebook, clenched my fists, remembered the girl's question. "Are you a hunter?" "No. But I'm not going anywhere until I figure this out." "Hello, Yevgeny Solomonovich." The sheriff was surprised to see me. "I gave you everything there was." "Not about that. I wanted to know under what circumstances and where you found my father's body." "A hunter found him in the forest while tracking the man-eater." "Can you mark the approximate spot on this map?" The sheriff shrugged, looked at the map I'd roughly copied from the professor's notebook, peered closely, then went into the house, brought a pen, and put a cross. "Let's go!" I dragged the girl into an alley. She was scared, but I covered her mouth and pulled her aside. She kicked, tried to bite, break free, but nothing worked. Not standing on ceremony, I pinned her to the wall, wanting her to fear me more than death. "Talk, why?" I asked why she asked if I was a hunter. She wanted to shout, but I shook her properly. She instantly fell silent, trembling all over. "Please don't do anything bad to me," she begged. "I'll let you go right after you tell me everything. But you have to understand, I felt sorry for you, but if I talk, they'll kill me." She suddenly burst into tears. I was ashamed of my actions, but I wasn't going to back down. "You'll talk, and right now. The faster, the better. Then no one will know about our conversation. But understand," she kept crying, "the whole town is afraid. No one will go against him. Why did I get involved? I felt sorry for you. Who is he?" She shook her head, meaning she wouldn't say. Then I grabbed her by the clothes again and slammed her back against the wall. "They said they'd kill me." Bad behavior, but I had no other choice. She believed the threat was real and gave a name. "Where are you off to at this hour?" asked the granny. "To the forest, Granny. To hunt the wolf. But how without a rifle?" "I'm just scouting." She sighed but said nothing. I left the town and indeed headed into the forest, but not toward the stream. Drawing a line between the place where they found the professor and the nearest point on the contour of the area he had highlighted, I estimated where the wolf must have dragged my friend's body from. I knew nothing threatened me that night. The skinwalker wouldn't have time to prepare. Finishing my business in the forest, I returned to the house, deliberately slamming the door loudly. Midiak rushed out to meet me. "Madman! Why didn't you tell anyone? Took off for no reason, and you said you weren't a hunter." "Lied." I shrugged. "I tracked the beast, Midiak. Tomorrow I'll set a trap by the river, and the day after tomorrow the hunt begins." He shook his head. "I wouldn't mess with that wolf." "You'd be better off." I just grunted in response and went to sleep. When Shurip and Sonya were waiting for me on the edge of town the next evening, I wasn't surprised. Shurip was aggressive, but I was ready for that too. Approaching, I threw my backpack off my shoulder and slipped my hand into the pocket of my sweatpants. "City boy, what are you doing prowling the forest?" "Didn't ask for permission," he began, waving his arms. "Didn't take a rifle, don't know the paths. They'll kill you there. We locals will have to answer for letting a fool like you in." He said something else, but I wasn't really listening. I watched Sonya, who was slowly circling me. "They beat up the hunter, disarm him, then drag him into the forest and leave him," the girl had said through tears. "You'll see, they'll answer," I had promised. Shurip stopped midword and lunged, but I was ready. I slipped an improvised knuckle duster onto my hand and took him down with one blow. Sonya tried to come from behind and hit me on the back of the head, but failed. I quickly shifted to the side, turned, and went on the attack, ruthlessly pounding him. He fell, curled into a ball. I started working him over with my feet. "Worthless scum!" I yelled. "How many people have you ruined, trembling for your own skins?" He mumbled something in response. I stopped hitting him and took a step back. "You think?" Sonya spat out, choking on blood. "We were scared for ourselves. Sometimes whole families were dealt with here. What are we supposed to do? Take your buddy and stay away from this town. Don't tell anyone anything. Today I'm putting an end to this." I stepped over Shurip's unconscious body, picked up my backpack, and walked confidently straight down the path. The pursuit began at night by the river, as I expected. I spotted the wolf when it was swimming. I, in turn, crossed to the other side on ropes I'd strung between trees beforehand. I ran. I needed to make it to the cabin before the beast figured out my plans. The backpack was in the way, though it weighed almost nothing. Jumping over fallen trees, bypassing ravines and small forest streams, I reached the hillock. There it was, the cabin. The door was ajar. A branch cracked behind me. A growl sounded. I had to hurry. Though out of breath, I found strength for a final sprint and reached the door. A sixth sense told me the enemy was very close. I turned around just in time. The wolf jumped, its maw gaping. I sidestepped, letting the predator crash into the wooden door jamb, kicked it, causing no harm but freeing the passage, entered the cabin, and slammed the door. On the floor, a candle, 12 knives, the last one blood-stained. Question: how does the transformation work? I'd read about rituals where the sorcerer rolls over a certain number of knives, cuts himself with the last one, and throws it aside. If you take the knife, the sorcerer can't return to his former shape. So I had two paths: find the place where the sorcerer performs the transformation, or kill him in his wolf form. I remembered the professor's note. I grabbed the bloodied knife, stuffed it into my backpack, pulled out a homemade torch and a lighter, struck the wheel, and held the torch's wick to the flame. Just in time, the window shattered. Shards of glass sparkled like crystal in the moonlight. The beast snarled. I thrust the now burning torch out in front of me. Open the door. "Well, is your psalm sung?" I spat out with hatred, looking at the wolf. The monster jumped at me, but immediately recoiled backward with a furious squeal, singeing the fur on its muzzle. I tried to jab the beast with the torch again, but the wolf behaved surprisingly. It ran back, stopped by the knives, and rolled over them. It froze. If it were a man, you'd say it looked at its paws with surprise and horror, then transferred its gaze to the knives, as if recounting them. Finally, eyes full of rage stared into my face. A terrible roar sounded. The monster began to attack again. Ignoring the pain the torch caused it, the wolf threw itself again and again, drawing strength for a new assault from its endless malice. It managed to grab my legs several times. Teeth snapped right near my face, but even this beast had a limit to its endurance. Covered in burns, its fur stinking of scorching, it finally gave up. Limping, it disappeared into the thicket of the forest, whining pitifully. I cautiously made my way back, understanding the wolf could try to attack at any moment. I returned to the town at dawn. Midiok was pacing back and forth by the road. As soon as he noticed me, he rushed toward me like a bullet. "What did you do to him?" he yelled. "To whom?" "Solomonic." "Nothing. He's running around the forest." It seemed he would attack me, but then he suddenly grabbed his head and shook all over. "And my mom, understand, my mom?" I walked past him without even granting him a glance. The residents of this town together had ruined the lives of a dozen people. They had allowed Stanislav Nikolaevich to be killed. Was I supposed to feel sorry for them now? "Get out of my house," Midiok yelled after me, "so I never see your ugly mug again." "Absolutely," I replied phlegmatically and headed to the cemetery. I stood by the professor's grave, thought I would need to have the body exhumed and buried in our city, talked to Sasha. I thought the hardest part had ended at night, but no, the hardest, unbearably painful part was still ahead. When I approached the old woman's house, I was met by a confused sheriff. "Well, what now, Slava?" He was confused and frightened. "I have nothing to charge you with, and now it turns out I have to arrest you." "For what?" "You have nothing to charge me with either." "Well, that's—" He hesitated, scratched the back of his head. "Really, it turns out there's nothing." "And the wolf, did you get it?" "No, I didn't get the wolf." "Organize a raid, catch the man-eater. Now he won't hide." "So that's how it is," the sheriff drawled. We stood at the entrance for a while longer. Then he mumbled something under his breath, apologized, and left. Upon returning, they questioned me at my place of residence, but they didn't pressure me. Once they were convinced that I had known the professor for a long time and had committed no crimes during my stay in the town, they left me alone. By the time Sasha arrived, Stanislav Nikolaevich had already been reburied. She kept trying to cover the expenses, but I refused. She cried a lot, unable to accept the death of her only close person. She thanked me, but I had no desire to hear those words of gratitude. She stayed with us. My mother heard everything. She worried about her deeply, but time heals even the most painful wounds. On the 10th day, Sasha began to feel better. Now she cried only at night. During the daylight hours, she seemed brighter. "It's time for me to leave, Slava," she told me that day. "I fly out tonight to New York, and from there to Argentina. Will you come with me to the cemetery?" "Of course." At the city cemetery, it was quiet. Somewhere far away, workers were installing a headstone, but the noise of their labor barely reached us. We stood before a wooden cross with a photograph of the professor in his youth nailed to it. Below it were the dates. "You never told me what really happened in that town, or how you met Gina Zelvikov." "There's nothing much to tell. It all happened by chance. But my uncle wasn't there for no reason. He was searching for something. It has to be connected to his stories." "Yes. Only those weren't just stories, Sasha." She said nothing, only looked at me with hidden pain. Then suddenly she embraced me and kissed me on the lips. After that, we hardly spoke at all. We parted the same day and have never seen each other since. But the acquaintance with the Yakovlev family remained in my memory forever.